Welcome back. All right, so I want to talk about something today we have not been able to talk about in years. Since 2018, 2019, the last time we had an 82 game schedule without any attendance restrictions, without it being a shortened season, without all that other fun stuff. So I have to compare the numbers now to what they were in 2018, 2019. I also want to say at the start of this, too, that economically right now, there are a lot of people who can't afford to go to hockey games. The economy has definitely turned, and I think that's what's happened in some of these markets. So I'm not posting this with the idea of saying, oh, these fans aren't good fans, or oh, they're not filling the building because they don't have loyalty, anything like that. This is a different environment. So it is interesting to look at where we are and where we were 4 years ago and see which teams have still kept their attendance close to the same, and which ones have not, and which ones have actually grown their attendance over that period in time. So I organized this by percentage of the building that's full. Now, in some cases, like for instance, I'll start with Tampa because I know Tampa's got a streak of sellouts. 99.4% is what it said on Hockey Reference of 19,204 that could be in attendance. But 19,092 is how many have been in attendance at Tampa Bay games for years, and that's considered 100% by the NHL. So that's why I said, you know what, I'll use the percentages to organize this way. This is why Arizona's so high. Don't worry, we will talk about Arizona. And it does have Buffalo at the bottom, which is alarming considering where they were 4 years ago, which is, I think the first time I did this might have been 4 years ago, and I used to compare 10 years to 10 years. And in this case, instead of doing the 10-year time span, I want to look at it based on before we went through those shortened seasons and all the other chaos of the last few years, and now, right? So at the top, we've got Vegas. Vegas in 2018, 2019 was averaging 18,318 fans per game. Now it's 18,010. That's still above capacity. And I always get asked, well, how can a building be above capacity? There's standing room only tickets. There's standing room only tickets. There's extra tickets get sold here and there depending on the building. But they've lost 308 fans per game on average. That's good. Honestly, that's good. Like I said, with the economy and everything else being as it is, Vegas is still above 100% in their attendance, and so they're still doing quite well. So is Nashville. And it's interesting with Nashville because this is a team that hasn't done anything between 2019 and 2023 to necessarily warrant the amount of just absolute loyalty that they get from their fans here. Their fan base has dropped, but nothing, really. They go from 17,445 on average to 17,266. It's still above their capacity, and they've lost 179 fans on average per game. That, again, is not significant. It's nothing that an owner's going to lose a lot of sleep over. Then you get to the Capitals. They've actually seen their attendance improve from where it was 4 years ago, which is fantastic considering 2018, 2019, they were the defending Stanley Cup champions during that regular season. So they go from 18,508 fans on average to 18,573. So that tells me there might be some more standing room only tickets being sold. Some extra tickets for fans who don't care about having an actual seat. Which, I mean, there's something to be said for that. Honestly, I don't mind wandering around and not necessarily having a seat. I think that could be kind of fun. I mean, as long as they have that dedicated viewing area, right? You don't want to be standing in doorways and watching a game, but hey. Then you have Seattle, who currently sit at fourth in the capacity and being above it and all. 17,151 fans on average. Seattle is doing quite well. Again, part of how they got this team was to have a season ticket drive and prove they could fill the building. So you're basically guaranteed for those first 3 to 5 seasons a sold-out house, right? You're guaranteed for a certain amount. And I'm not just saying with Seattle. That's why I'm saying 3 to 5, because when Winnipeg got their team back, they had to make a guarantee. I'm pretty sure Vegas had to have that guarantee as well, and Seattle too. So basically, the NHL says if we're going to give you guys a new team or if we're going to move a team there, we want to see a full house. So Seattle has done a good job. Their attendance is high. And I know people will say, well, they're new and, wait until things go bad. Well, for Vegas, they missed the playoffs last year, and yet the attendance has been really quite good. Arizona, the interesting part is their actual attendance numbers have dropped precipitously because of Mullet Arena. But they were filling the building at 81.7% with 13,989 fans in attendance in 2018-2019. Now that number is 4,600. That's the capacity at Mullet Arena. I think with private boxes, it can get it up to 5,000. That is a drop of 9,389 fans per game. That is not something that is to be sneezed at or scoffed at, and yet here we are. The one thing with that, of course, is they should be getting the new building. We'll find out in May what the vote is on that. But it is a lot of attendance that's been dropped. Now the tickets are expensive for Mullet Arena, so I don't know the financials on how much money necessarily has been lost by the Coyotes franchise, but there are owners and players who've expressed some concerns. That being said, the plan is to get that new building sooner rather than later and just make it so that the Arizona State experience is good for them too. And they enjoy that, and they seem to. They're better at home than they are on the road. It's a limited sample size at home, but hey, for the Coyotes, I know the overall number is very easily the worst in the league, but they're at 100%, so they end up at here on the board, and we'll see what happens in Tempe. I would think that the new building in Tempe will definitely draw more than 14,000 fans per game, especially to start, right? They're going to have to build some excitement between now and then, get a couple of big star players in there, and they'll have the money to do it, I would think. Minnesota has dropped off in that they were at 18,907 fans per game 4 years ago. Now they have 17,856. That's a drop of 1,051 per game. Again, there are economic reasons for some of these drops, and or there are fan bases who might say, wake us up when you're in a Stanley Cup position. For Minnesota, they've been in the league for over 20 years. There's been a lot of fool's gold along the way where they think they've got it, and then it just doesn't work out. So Minnesota's a very strong market. That's still almost a full building. The 18,907 was well above capacity. So they're not in any danger at the very least. Minnesota will never ever lose a team again. I think it was such a disaster when it happened back in the early 90s. The NHL would never even allow an owner to think of it. Tampa Bay is the same, 19,092 fans per game. They're reliable, and I see people saying with Tampa, well, it's because they're a good team, and if they were a bad team, people wouldn't show up. There's been some debate about how much papering of the ticket base there's been over the years. There isn't now. That is a very loud, full building in Tampa, and good on them. They've had a nice long string of sellouts. Are there times where ownership might help those sellouts? Maybe. But it's not nearly as bad as some of the things I've seen online. There's not that many fans. It's just they buy the tickets, and not really. Toronto, there has been a bit of a sell-off in Toronto, but not really at the same time. Toronto's not having any kind of problems either. So they were at 19,276 per game. Now they're at 18,682. That's a drop of 594. But again, they're almost at capacity every single game. So Toronto is not having any problem selling tickets. I wanted to say Maple Leaf Gardens. I almost said Maple Leaf Gardens is still full, but it's not Maple Leaf Gardens. It should be Maple Leaf Gardens. It's ridiculous. All the corporate names are just weird because then they change every few years, it seems, and so yeah. That's why I don't bother with the names of the buildings anymore, because they seem to just change, and they're corporate names. It's weird. But yeah, for Toronto, there will never be a problem selling tickets. And I've heard the argument, too, that that's why ownership doesn't try to improve the team, because they know you're going to buy tickets no matter what. Probably accurate, yeah. Colorado, there's been an increase for Colorado. Makes some sense since they just won the Stanley Cup and all. They've gone from 17,132 per game to 17,742, a gain of 610. Denver's an excellent hockey market, really is. The New York Rangers here go from 17,318 to 17,822, a gain of 504. Madison Square Garden has undergone numerous revamps over the years. They've remodeled that building time and time again. And that's to keep it modern and to make sure you're maximizing your potential when it comes to earning from attendance. New York will never be a city you look at and say, I don't know that the attendance is very good for the Rangers. I've never heard those words said. Dallas, 18,178 previously. Now it's 18,328. They've gained 150. over the last 4 years. Dallas is one of those buildings when you're watching on TV, it always looks kind of half empty, but the attendance tells me it's not. So I guess there's season ticket holders that don't come in. You may be dealing with fans too that come in, they come to their seat late in the period, maybe they go out, there might be a lot of walking around going on. I know Detroit fans have mentioned that to me in previous seasons as well. Dallas does quite well for themselves. Montreal's gone from 21,046 to 21,035 per game. They've lost an average of 11 fans per game. That's still pretty good. 21,000 fans, yeah, they're making some good money in Montreal. Boston's doing well too. They go from 15,565 to 17,565 to 17,850. They've gained 285 per game. The one thing with Boston, of course, is they are sellouts, and this is another case where it told me the percentage was 98.8%. So Hockey Reference that I used for that number may have a different attendance number for the building than what the teams are actually using, which happens. You may have a different attendance for instance, for basketball, you're going to have more for basketball than you will for hockey because of the floor seats. And for concerts, you may have a different attendance than you have for hockey games, right? The sight lines and all of that. So it does change. So I don't look at the capacity of each building as being set in stone. Vancouver's gained. How does this happen? Vancouver's gone from 18,022 fans per game in 2018-2019 to 18,561. They've gained 539 fans per game, despite the Canucks being not great. So, again, everybody, I keep hearing in the market, oh, and Aquilini needs to sell the team, and this is just awful. Owners pay attention to the fact that they're selling more tickets. So if I was an owner of the Canucks right now, and I'm hearing sell the team, but I'm looking at attendance, I'm going, yeah, no, the team's doing fine. I don't see that there's any reason for me to sell the team. So, yeah, Vancouver has gained. I don't have any idea how that happens. St. Louis goes from 17,361 fans per game in the year they won the Stanley Cup to 18,033 fans per game at this point. So they've gained 672. That's pretty solid. St. Louis is an excellent market, too. The New York Islanders, new building. The new building's made a huge difference. They've gone from 12,442 to 16,575. They're getting 4,133 more fans per game. So in getting their new building, they're almost getting as many fans extra per game as Arizona's getting per game in their building currently. The Islanders, I'm glad for Islander fans that all of the move the team, sell the team, move the team, sell the team crap is over, because the Islanders, always a good market, always good fans, and now they're showing it by, filling that building all the time. Then you get to Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's dropped, and this is why I mention economics, because I do know that there are certain parts of the U.S. and of Canada that gets hit worse economically. Alberta is another part that I look at, and I think that could be economic reasons too. So they go from 18,565 fans per game to 17,413 fans per game, which is a drop of 1,152. And again, Pittsburgh fans are rabid supporters of this team. It does feel different than it used to, and I know, in previous eras when they get Lemieux and then when they got Crosby, there were debates about whether or not Pittsburgh was a hockey market, whether or not it would survive in Pittsburgh, and whether or not the fans would support a team that wasn't winning. I think they will. I genuinely think that Pittsburgh, if this team does go into a rebuild at some point in the next few years, I don't think attendance will suffer, because I think they've built up enough of a loyal fan base to understand that that's how things work, and I think they'll still show up. Carolina's had a huge boom over the last 4 years. They've gone from 322 fans per game, which is around a time that there was a lot of discussion about, well, maybe Carolina shouldn't have a team. And don't hear that now. They're at 18,400 fans per game. That's a gain of 4,078. And this is a success story that the Arizona ownership would be looking at and saying, Carolina's made it work. They've made themselves a success. How can we mirror that success in another southern market? And again, Carolina, it was at least a decade plus that there was a lot of debate about whether or not the team was going to survive. Are they going to need to move? And it was around Carolina and which part of Carolina will, and it works now and everything seems fine. The Oilers have dropped in attendance from 18,347 per game to 17,388. That's a drop of 959. Again, excellent fan base. I don't see any reason for that to be an alarming trend, and I don't think it stays that way either. Again, I think there's economic reasons why there's less in attendance. And when you see some of the drops off in attendance, you can kind of understand the NHL saying, so we're going to go to all these digital board advertisements. We're going to have all kinds of legal gambling associations and sponsorships. Oh, we're putting ads on jerseys now. Ads are going on helmets. We're going to be advertising to you during the game while it's not supposed to be advertising time because we need more ad revenue. It sort of offsets what they're losing in gate revenue, right? And I think they anticipated that gate revenue could be down in some markets this year. Winnipeg. Winnipeg is a market to keep an eye on. They've gone from 15,321 per game to 13,895 per game. That's a drop of 1,426 per game. They have one of the deepest pocketed owners in the National Hockey League. I believe he is the deepest pocketed owner in the NHL. That definitely helps. And he's a big Jets fan, which also helps. But for the Jets, their overall attendance is low. It is a smaller building, but that attendance is low. I know that those tickets are expensive, and as I mentioned in previous parts of this video, and I'll mention it here as well, the economy has been tough for a lot of people lately. So having that money to go out and watch a hockey game may not be, it just isn't an option for as many people as it was 4 years ago. Calgary 2018-2019, they were at 18,501. Currently, they're at 17,725, which is a drop of 776. So the fact that both the Oilers and the Flames dropped tells me Alberta's definitely had some issues with their economy. And the reality is that for the Calgary Flames, they do need a new building. The new building that Edmonton got absolutely helped their numbers and helped that franchise. I think that it's been a selling point. Just the rejuvenation of Edmonton's downtown has been a selling point, I think, for players to both go to Edmonton and to stay in Edmonton. And for Calgary, I think they need a similar plan where they get that building. And of course, it's going to mean the mayor talking to the ownership of the Flames and making that work. But I don't have any alarm about their number dropping either. Detroit, numbers dropped. Understandable. This team's been out of the playoffs for a while. And Michigan is known for going through its economic hardships too, and it reflecting in things like attendance. 19,120 is where they were in 2018-2019. Now they're at 18,387. That's a drop of 733 fans per game. But again, I don't see that as a lack of interest in the team as much as I see it reflecting other things just societally, right? Then we get to the last column. We get to the LA Kings. They've dropped from 18,000 fans per game in 2018-2019 to 16,176, which is a drop of 1,824. It's an alarming drop-off for LA. But Los Angeles, the city itself, yeah, I mean, there's economical issues there too. This is a team that hasn't been, a playoff success for a while now. Although they did make the playoffs last season. I'm kind of surprised at the attendance being where it is, considering how well they played last season. But LA is kind of known as being a fickle market too. And you look at Anaheim, you sort of see the same thing. But of course, with Anaheim, they're going through the rebuild. So they dropped from 16,814 fans per game to 15,024 fans per game, which is a drop off of 1,790. And again, understandable. Anaheim going through the rebuild. Not a lot of winning going on, not a lot of reasons to buy a ticket if you're a casual fan. Like, you've got your hardcore fan base is still there. You're over 15,000 per game, but it's about drawing in the casuals, and we would call them bandwagoners too. You're not going to have that while you're going through that rebuild. Columbus, the numbers have dropped. 16,658. It's dropped down to 15,693. It's dropped off by 965 on average. Columbus is an interesting market in that they've had trouble with attendance before. They've been low on the board pretty much throughout anytime I do videos on attendance. So, yeah, for Columbus, I mean, we're not talking about relocation. It's interesting, too, because there is that feeling that something's going to change and somebody's going to get moved. I don't get the feeling anybody's getting moved. There's a reason I stopped doing those videos 2 years ago, because I really don't see anybody getting moved. The last one that really was most likely was Arizona, and that's kind of been solidified now. It's one of those things with Columbus that I've noticed over the years that attendance videos, whenever I do those, they're always not necessarily right at the bottom, but they're always relatively low. But again, no movement is going to happen. Philadelphia, I throw that in because I know that there will be comments of, well, maybe that team, maybe this team. And again, it's almost like a fantasy booking of what we'd like to see and where we'd like to see teams. All right, so Philadelphia, 4 years ago, they were at 19,141 fans per game. It has dropped, and understandably so. 16,929, a drop off of 2,212 fans per game. So it's a lot of digital ads they'd have to sell to make up the difference there. The one thing with Philly, of course, they are going through that rebuild. There's a lot of issues right now with the Philadelphia Flyers. I've definitely seen, that they need new management has been talked about, and just the general direction of the team. Completely understandable that people that, again, may not have the disposable income to go to hockey games, if they do have any disposable income, saying, I'd rather not use that on the Flyers right now. I totally get it. The New Jersey Devils, they've gone from 14,904 4 years ago to 14,005, which is a drop of 899. And New Jersey's an interesting market because I remember when they moved there from Colorado, and that the team's attendance wasn't very good out of the gate there either. And of course, building discussions here and there. And it is an odd market in that there have been years where the attendance has been really strong, but in general, it's not been great. What's weird to me is that they've lost 899 fans per game from where they were 4 years ago. And this is a team that's been winning a lot of games. So that's one reason that you would look at it and say, so that could be seen as alarming, correct? And I would say, yeah, that could be seen as alarming. Then you get to Ottawa. Ottawa's numbers have come up. So 4 years ago, the numbers were down to 14,533 per game. Now they're at 15,377, which is a gain of 844 fans per game. That's a good number. Again, for Ottawa. Now they need a new building too. Calgary and Ottawa are the two that need a new building other than Arizona. So that's three teams currently seeking a new building that I can just think of off the top of my head. It's definitely an issue that the NHL wants to see get dealt with. And of course, what holds it back is ownership not necessarily wanting to front 100% of the costs, arguments between the city on whose costs are what, that kind of thing. So for Ottawa, it's nice to see the attendance up. I think that helps when you've got a sale underway. It tells ownership, hey, these guys will support this team. If I can get a downtown arena, we'll probably fill it, and I would agree. Florida's numbers have come up. They absolutely have. They've gone from 12,919 per game to 15,657 per game. They're up 2,738 fans per game. It is still noticeable watching Florida games how many empty seats there can be on any given night. I don't talk about any of that in recaps anymore because, again, it feels like that's something I've discussed in seasons past. It's a topic of conversation that's been out there for years. I don't really need to pile on at this point. It's what it is. But their numbers have come up. They've absolutely come up. That's good. I actually still, though, am kind of surprised that they're not better numbers considering the team won the President's Trophy last year. One thing that I've always said about Florida is give this fan base a winner and see if they show up. And right now they're showing up, but probably not in the numbers that ownership would like. So Florida, once Arizona gets their arena, I'm going to warn Florida fans now, that's where the conversation's going to head. All of the Quebec Nordique fans will suddenly be Florida haters again. Not that I think there's any chance of anything happening with the Florida Panthers. There's an out with their lease coming up, I think, over the next couple of years. But do I think the team's going to exercise it? No. Do I think the building wants them out? Also, no. So yeah, Florida, pretty stable, and at least the numbers are up, right? As long as the numbers are trending in the right direction, you've got to be optimistic as a hockey fan. Chicago, their numbers have dropped way off, and Chicago had trouble with attendance before the Kane and Taves era. They were at 21,399 fans per game in 2018-2019. Now they're at 16,067, which is a drop off of 5,332 fans per game. It is a market that has kind of turned on the franchise. It's a market that can be won back. It's a market that has been won back in the past. I do expect them to recover this. The one thing, of course, with Chicago is they're going through the rebuild. Whether they go the full rebuild route, which can be 5 years or longer, or if they look at this attendance number and say, we don't know that the fans necessarily have the patience. We should try a 2-year retool and turn it around. We'll see. But at either rate, It's been a while since Chicago was a contender, and I totally understand the marketplace in Chicago not being out there. And again, there are socioeconomic reasons for that too. San Jose 2018-2019 go from 17,266 fans per game. Currently, they're at 13,640 fans per game. They're down 3,626 fans. The one thing that stands out with San Jose, those lights on the seats, the lights on the seats that flash during the game, those are fun. It really, really, really highlights the empty seats. I'm just throwing out there, it really highlights the empty, for me anyways, watching on TV. You guys let me know. I mean, other than the fact that San Jose games appear to be shot by I don't know that it's the Hubble Space Telescope necessarily. I've seen that. I just assume it's the spy satellite that takes video. And I just mean that when you watch a San Jose game, there are times where I can't see the crest on the front of their jersey, especially with the black stealth thirds. I couldn't see anything. Just like, all right, well, that black blob down there, that's a San Jose Shark, because there you go. You can't see much. And again, I know it's a weird thing to rail against, but it's odd. And because the camera is so far up, you can really see how many seats are empty. And so it makes the whole thing distracting. And then for me too, that's your 7:30 game, right? So it's got my undivided attention, and it's a quiet building. And it's understandable that San Jose would be struggling to attract fans, as the team hasn't been relevant for a while. But it just, those flashing lights really call attention. I mean, the only thing missing is like a little sign on the back of the seat that says empty, just flashing. And then you have one that says full for the ones that are bought. And so, you could have them move to the side, and you can have a green light that says full and a red light for empty. That'd be great. That's a good way to sell the seats, or buy now. Just every seat flashing flashing buy now. Or season ticket holder, not present. There's those as well. And then you get to Buffalo. Buffalo, it is alarming to look at their attendance. Again, it's understandable, but this team's good this year. And again, I've mentioned the economy. I'll throw it in again here. If you're hurting and you can't afford to go to a game, totally understandable. I'm only going to 2 this year myself. Part of the reason is that too, right? 2022 has kind of been the year of the unforeseen expense for me. So totally understandable, like thousands of dollars. I'm like, what, how? Anyways, for Buffalo, they've gone from 17,908 fans on average 4 years ago to 13,799, a drop of 4,109. And it's a marketplace that at time has been very angry. It is a marketplace that is kind of tired of 11 straight seasons outside the playoffs. And whether the blame is on management, whether the blame is on ownership, whether the blame is on the players on the ice, it is just in general, there's a lot of blame to go around in Buffalo right now. I think winning will bring the fans back. But I'm going to say again, this is a good team. I really hope Buffalo fans start to come out and watch, because they're playing exciting hockey. For me, watching this and seeing Tage Thompson become a superstar, I don't know how long. I don't know if he's going to be a superstar for 5-10 years, or if this is just a magical season. But it's fun to watch. And so I feel sad that these players are going out there and just playing so darn well. And the marketplace, it feels like, has been kind of, I don't want to use the term poisoned. I think that gets used too much. But it just feels like the marketplace has soured on the team. And it's too bad, because they are a lot of fun to watch. They're a good young team. And hopefully those attendance numbers turn around soon. Let me know your thoughts in the comments section below, as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through, you just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.